Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan football and basketball writer for The Free, joined today by the usual fellas, Reiner Saban, our Big Ten insider, who will be playing the part of Michigan State insider more today. And then Andrew Burkle, of course, our producer and editor. Reiner, it's rivalry week. Big week in the state of Michigan. I've seen people call it the backyard brawl before. Even at our old station, Andrew, we had that graphic once. That's preposterous. That is clearly Pittsburgh and West Virginia. This has nothing to do with that. Have you ever even heard that? Because I've seen that written, and I'm just like, what is this?
I have not heard that. I've not heard that.
Not that you wrote it, Reiner.
It sounds like something that like a producer who doesn't really watch the game, doesn't watch football would say, oh, it's the old backyard brawl. But that is not what this game is in fact called.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's not what the game is called, and I've never heard that, and it's ludicrous, frankly. I mean, that literally is the name of what you just mentioned, Pittsburgh and West Virginia. So, no, absolutely not.
And then, of course, Michigan, Ohio State is the game, but whatever you call it, any of us who are born in this state, live in this state, work in this state, around this state, are well aware that Michigan and Michigan State is a huge rivalry. The battle for the Paul Bunyan, of course. And that's what the bulk of this episode will be centered on, looking ahead to the game on Saturday and really breaking down the matchup, because we have Reiner here who is uniquely suited in that he is in both halls, locker rooms, press conference settings every single week, both cities, every time. So he is intimately involved with these programs and can help break it down. And obviously, Andrew and I both follow the Big Ten, and we know quite a bit about Michigan is the idea. That's why we're paid. So without further ado, before that, this game is going to be looked at in a lens that none of us expected, right? I mean, last year it was 49-0, a complete laugher. And this year it is a tight contest. And we're going to get into the exact game. But how that's happened and the vibes going into this game, Reiner, are coming off of the heels of what just happened this last week when Michigan had a bye week, and then they come off of it and they lose 21-7 to Illinois, their fewest points in a decade. So that is really the tenor in which we're entering this game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was their second consecutive loss. They're 4-3. They've fallen out of the rankings. They don't look anywhere as good as they did last year in any facet whatsoever. They've got real systemic problems, and the state of the program is not good.
There's, so many places to get to, but I think we have to start with the offense, right? That is, without question, the number one issue plaguing this team. Head coach Ron Moore continues to say turnovers, and that is the largest culprit maybe on the offense, but it's the lack of a passing game. Stop us if you've heard this before, right? I mean, it's all we've talked about in the offseason, all we talked about early this season. This has not caught anyone by surprise. They're not 4-3 out of nowhere. I mean, in the grand scheme, they are, because they were 15-0 last year, and the fall so quickly, that is almost out of nowhere. But we did see this sort of happening in slow motion, Reiner, right? I mean, when they don't add any quarterbacks in the portal, when they have 5 healthy scholarship wide receivers, none of whom are proven to any with even more than like 200 yards in a season, and then you add a receiver in CJ Charleston from Youngstown State, which is a very low level like football, frankly. It's just there was nothing. Maybe I did a bad job. Actually, I'm going to strike that. I know I did a bad job capping just how far this team would fall, because I really thought they were more insulated than this, Reiner. I thought they had a ton of pieces in place. We had seen in bits and pieces how Michigan really did live to that next man up mentality, right? Like even a few years ago when Blake Corum goes down against Illinois and people are thinking all hope is lost going into that Ohio State game in Columbus, Donovan Edwards shows up in a big way and has some huge rushes. Cornelius Johnson catches 2 big deep balls, right? I mean, they have like 4 60+ yard plays, and they just take it to them. There's nothing like that this year. I know I just made a ton of different points, but it's because it's so hard to keep one cogent, coherent thought with this offense when you got problems at quarterback, problems at receiver, problems on the line. The tight ends have been good. Kyle Mullings has been good, and even Donovan in a lesser role when he's been asked to do less has not even, frankly, been one of their problems outside of 2 fumbles, which, I mean, they can't afford. So, Reiner, I mean, where do you stand on all?
Well, they totally overestimated the strength of the offense, the talent that was available, clearly at the quarterback position, also at the wide receiver position. I mean, the fact that they didn't make any real substantial moves. And I don't like the excuse that they keep using that, Sharon Moore was, hired late. There are other programs that were actually in transition phase where their players were going in the portal because their coach left right at that time. So that window was still open at Washington and Alabama and such. And so there were players that were actually, available in the portal there and elsewhere. And, there's also obviously, tampering that goes on, away from it, whether you want to believe it or not, or whether you want to talk about it or not. It's a real thing. Somebody says, oh, tell your friend who's your former high school teammate, we have an opening at this place, or tell, again, somebody or something, high school coach or whatever, that we have an opening and we need somebody there.
When you're dapping each other up post-game,
exactly.
Right?
There's a lot of that stuff that goes on, behind the scenes, and everybody knows about it. It's a common talking point. And so there's no excuses for why Michigan really wasn't able to find any better alternatives through the portal. It's like they didn't want to. They were so committed to the idea that their personnel was the best in it. It goes back to hubris and arrogance. I mean, there was just this idea that Sharon Moore, he was going to be this continuity person. He was just going to maintain the status quo, be able to run the same formula of complementary football. But again, complementary football has a very thin margin of error, especially if you don't have a great passing game. And so it puts a lot of pressure on every other aspect.
And Reiner, here's the question. How did they come to the conclusion that the answer was in the quarterback room when nobody there came in highly recruited almost in any way? Alex Orji was only offered a quarterback spot at one Power 4 school, Michigan, right? Davis Warren played at 6 games in high school. They offered him a walk-on spot. And then Jack Tuttle, yes. I mean, back when Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were in high school, he was also a highly regarded recruit. Yeah, well, 6 years have gone by since then. And he did nothing at Utah and was pedestrian at Indiana. And so how they even allowed themselves to think that the answer was here is shocking. And it's why it's why I harp on things like accountability. And people who listen to this, they might not understand me. I don't know. I haven't gotten direct feedback about this point I've made, but you guys both know I've complained, I will use that word, about the lack of access that we get, right? Because if we were allowed to see practice to any level, do you think we wouldn't have called this kind of out? I mean, it does
but I was
not take a rock.
Even, I wrote after the spring game that they only converted on 4 of the 14 drives between, I think, both of the teams. I said that this is going to be a problem if they can't execute and put together long drives. Kirk Campbell was talking about this explosive element, which was clearly not truthful based on what we have seen. So that wasn't even there. But I was saying, well, if they can't put together these kind of long drives, it's going to have a really negative effect on the defense. And I wrote this right after the spring game. So, I mean, what we saw.
You're a professional. You're really good, right? You're really good at seeing all these things, understanding all these things. And I'm saying everybody. And I mean,
I shouldn't be able to see this stuff, and then the coaching staff can see it, and that's the problem.
But that's my point about accountability. I don't know if they're lying to us or lying to themselves, but by nobody being there day in and day out to hold them accountable, you'd think they'd have to hold themselves accountable. But just listen to what they're saying. I mean, we have Donovan Edwards earlier this week talking about how there's no reason that this should be this way because they have NFL talent. He said, everybody in there is a draft pick. There's not one draft pick in the wide receiver room or the quarterback room. That's just not true. And how many are on the offensive line right now who play? Maybe 1, 2. I don't know. It's fundamentally not true. I don't know if Donovan's an NFL player. To be frank, it's gotten to that point. I mean, I think he'll get drafted. I think he'll play, but I don't know. I mean, he has NFL burst and elite skill. So that was a step too far, but you get the point, right? This is not last year. This is nothing like last year, where you had 13 guys drafted and another 5 UDFAs.
But I mean, again,
but there will be draft picks, which a whole nother level of concern is there is still high-end talent on this team. There's not the depth, which is why it doesn't play into the complementary football, but there are still 4 first-round draft picks. There are 7, 8 day 2, day 3, day 1, day 2 guys.
Again,
right?
they've overestimated, though. Again, when you have to replace 5 guys on the offensive line, I mean, that takes time. It takes time especially from a pass protection standpoint. If pass protection breaks down, then you're putting the quarterback in a vulnerable position. When you put a bad quarterback in a vulnerable position, you get what we've seen. And so, I mean, it goes across the board. It's like they didn't think about all these little factors and how they would affect the rest of everything else. And that really is the problem here. It just was not a well thought out plan. I mean, again, they thought they could just run it back with inferior pieces, which is incredibly dumb.
Inferior pieces, Reiner, at every single spot, counting the coaching staff. Ron Bellamy, I mean, I don't know how many times I've said it on this podcast. Ron Bellamy is the only coach in the same position as last year, and he's in charge of the worst group on the team. Everybody is being asked to do something they've either never done or haven't done in 20 years. And then you're asking Tyler Morris, all due respect, to be the alpha, right? He's just a guy. He is just a dude in the room. And maybe I shouldn't call out that young man just by, I mean, Samaj Morgan. Look, I mean, looking at him too. I mean, he was a 3-star recruit. I think he had fallen out of the top 10 in the state of Michigan. I think he was the 11th rated recruit in his own state, right? Like, these are not highly, highly regarded guys at those spots. And so it's just, Andrew, I don't know what you think about all of this. Is this fair? Are we being too hard? Like, because we're really in it. I mean,
no,
I don't know.
I don't think you guys are being unfair because, the fan base is feeling this way. And rebuilds are hard. I mean, that's what I keep contemplating is, rebuilds are hard. Taking over for Jim Harbaugh was never going to be easy. However, it's hard to find things that this new regime has done well so far. What would you point your finger to and say, well, they nailed that? You'd have to say retention, right? Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, Colson Loveland, they all stuck around. However, in this case right now, I think that's kind of working against Sharon because he entered this season with expectation. They have real talent. Where even if Michigan hits the portal at an Ohio State last offseason level, they're not getting Mason Graham. They're not getting Kenneth Grant. They're not getting Will Johnson or Colson Loveland. So I think and there's no guys below them who are like the obvious next guys right now. That's where I think some of the concern is because you have those guys now. And when you were given that, which Jonathan Smith at Michigan State wasn't given anyone of that talent level, name, any other player besides maybe, or any other coach besides maybe Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, they weren't starting with those kind of talented players. So I think that's why you feel that extra angst amongst the beat reporters, amongst the fans, amongst people who are just watching this Michigan program, like, what the heck is going wrong? Because it doesn't seem like much is going right.
I think that sums it up very well. I mean, again, you're right. They did have some serious talent, especially on the defensive side, but the poor planning on the offensive side has infected everything else. And this is the kind of team that you see where, again, it doesn't work all in sync. The offense is out of sync, and now it's having a deleterious effect on the defense. And this is the kind of results you're going to get when complementary football can't be executed. Again, Harbaugh's style has to be done well, or it could really blow up in your face. Because, again, you get like 2020 results where it got all out of whack. They couldn't play complementary football because they weren't running the ball enough, and they fell behind. In that season in 2020, they conceded the first touchdown or first score in every game that year. Here, you're seeing them fall behind 13-0, 14-0, and you're not going to win many games with that, especially if you can't pass the ball. But it's a very delicate formula that you have to be able to execute exactly the right way, and they haven't been able to do that. The problem is that they tried to do that again with worse pieces and didn't even account for any kind of contingency plan there as far as like maybe trying to adjust their style one bit. They're again running it back with much, much worse pieces.
And now we're seeing all the different ways that this inexperienced coaching staff, I would say, is manifesting, right? It's not handling things properly in the offseason, not looking ahead enough. Maybe running the quarterback competition all the way to the last minute, right? Never determining a style of play. I would say, and I said it at the time, pulling the plug on Davis Warren at that moment. I think it was too soon. There was just, yes, they won the USC game in Minnesota, but look what happened. They only won that game because of early pick sixes, because they were up 14-0 and 24-3. Now they get credit for going up, but I mean, Alex Orji proved to be as bad. They haven't gone back to him, and Tuttle has turned the ball over 4 times in 5 quarters, and Davis Warren threw 6 picks in 11 quarters, and they haven't gone to Orji. That tells you everything you need to know about where he's at, right? So they didn't handle it right in the offseason. They didn't handle it right in the preseason. They haven't handled it right in the season. And now you're looking at, oh, we just got to stop the turnovers. Oh, we got to execute. Oh, we got to just limit the explosives. Oh, we got to get on the same page. You're out of a bye, and you looked dreadful. They looked completely ill-prepared, and that is coaching as well. And so everything, whether it's the offseason, whether it's overestimating things, whether it's not being truthful, whatever you want to say, it's all been bad.
And it all falls on Sharon Moore. I mean, again, everything falls on Sharon Moore for this because it's been a complete failure, really, to go from 15-0 and, again, leading the nation in turnover margin, having the number 1 scoring defense, having the number 1 total defense, again, committing so few penalties, dominating the second half. They have lost the second half in each of their last 5 games. I don't know what screams more to fans and everybody else that the coaching is failing than that. I mean, if you can't win the second half, you're going to lose a lot of games. And, if other teams are making adjustments that are better than yours coming out, I mean, you're dead to rights. So, I mean, that's a complete failure on the coaching staff, especially considering how good they were in the second half. And, some people can attribute that to the allegations that have been going on. But again, even in the last 8 games with Michigan, after the Connor Stallion stuff came out, they still were a very good second half team. I mean, look at what they did against Alabama in the Rose Bowl.
And I want to give Andrew the last thought on that, Reiner. But when you say it's all to blame, Sharon Moore is all to blame, I cannot let Jim Harbaugh leave Ann Arbor scot-free. And now it's not his responsibility. It is not. He didn't care. He just went on to his next stop. He absolutely knew what was happening. He gutted this staff and didn't think twice about it, right? Sharon Moore was his guy, and he's calling him from the foxhole and this and that. Dude, you left probation and investigations and thinned out depth charts and no coaches. Oh, happy birthday, right? Like, here's your present. Merry Christmas from me to you. I think Sharon Moore has underachieved, full stop. But Jim Harbaugh started pushing this thing down the tracks in the wrong way. Now, he is an absolutely fantastic, elite coach. I think he'll go down on the shortest of short lists when his career is all said and done. Like top 5, maybe, all time. That can be true, and he can also have left this place in a horrible place.
I think he definitely got that ball rolling, but it's not his job to set up Sharon Moore. It's not his job. What other coach leaves a team and says, maybe it's complicated because it's his alma mater? It's not his goal to leave Michigan. It's not like his responsibility to leave it in a place better than he found it. Jim Harbaugh has that NFL.
Well, you want to leave it better?
Jim Harbaugh has an NFL mindset. He's thinking about winning that year and the next year and the next year. He's thinking about winning that season. He's not thinking about, well, I got to leave it in a better place than I found it. I don't think that's in Jim Harbaugh's nature. He's never left. Look at the 49ers when he left. They were a dumpster fire when he left.
He's never thought about anyone but himself. It's absolutely not in his nature.
I don't think that's entirely inaccurate when it comes to leaving programs behind. I don't think he is caring. He doesn't care about what it looks like after he leaves, and he's not paid to do so. So yes, he definitely got that ball rolling. He may have, quote unquote, like we got the snowball rolling down the hill in some ways. But, it's also not, what was he supposed to tell Sharon which quarterbacks they're going after in the transfer portal? I mean, it's not his job to do that.
True. Sharon Moore has come up short. It was not, a lot of people are like, oh my God, they just won the national championship. And like, look what this was never, ever, ever under the best of circumstances going to resemble last year. However, how it has looked is wholly unacceptable.
Well, Tony, though, I mean, yeah, you can blame Jim Harbaugh, but I mean, Sharon Moore was talking a big game going into the season. His assistants were talking a big game, and they were walking around. They also didn't try to court any relationships with the media, taking that for granted. I think that was a huge blunder because when stuff hits the fan, as it has, there's nobody there to protect you. Look at Juwan Howard and how that played out. When you don't develop relationships with, even the media or even make an attempt to try to do that, and you act like you're kind of above it all, this is how it happens. And, the tide really turns against you. I mean, you really have no safe harbor at that point because you didn't make any kind of, I'm looking at Alabama right now. There's people in the media that are like, okay, here's a reason why this is happening. You know why? Because Kalen DeBoer and his staff have been really good about, kind of explaining things, courting the media in that sense, and providing access.
I've seen Alabama
and providing a lot of access. And you look at Tom Izzo last year. Tom Izzo at Michigan State basically underperformed expectations last year, but you didn't see a ton of criticism from the reporters because, again, he's explaining why things are happening, that this is how it's going. This may be a reason why, and people are able to understand that. Sharon Moore made no efforts to do that. Instead, he was just kind of puffing out his chest, explaining, "Oh, we look good. We have got all the talent available." When the schedule was mentioned and how challenging it was like, "Oh, well, they got to play us." I mean, it was a very kind of just defiant and arrogant tone coming out of the program leading up to the season. Now, look at what they're facing. And Sharon Moore has been humbled, but there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't really feel sorry for you because of the way you conducted yourself leading into the season.
One final thing to tie this up, because I think, I'm sure Tony's anxious to get to our Michigan State segment. We got a lot to get to still. I think, Reiner, you kind of touched on this a little bit ago, and I think it actually is a perfect encapsulation of kind of what went wrong for Sharon. Is I don't think he was necessarily seeing the board and how the square pegs fit in the round holes and vice versa. When he hired Wink Martindale, I think is the perfect example of this, because Tony, you talked about an inexperienced staff and everyone in, different roles. Wink is, I'd have to double check this, if not the most he made would be near the very top of most experienced defensive coordinators in the NFL. I mean, this guy has been calling defense forever, but it doesn't seem like a natural fit at all. It seems like a little awkward. The Reiner wrote an article about some of the statistics and the blitz rates and he's, using this blitz when they have a great front four. So I think that kind of encapsulates it in a lot of ways where on its surface, Wink Martindale, hire Wink Martindale, but that doesn't fit what they're looking for. And that seems to be kind of what the problem is here when it's like all these different moving parts. It should be working on its surface and it's not one individual thing, but it just doesn't make sense together.
All fair. I agree with much of what was said. And the last point to wrap that up, Rod Moore went on a podcast, I believe Unconquering Heroes, a few weeks back, and he talked about how he remembers when the defense was getting installed. He's like, whoa, this is kind of complicated. If that's Rod Moore's first thought, good luck to everybody else trying to understand those schemes. All right, that's the state of the program. Don't go anywhere. On the other side, we are going to make our game picks and, of course, an extensive preview of Michigan State. Don't go anywhere. This is Hail Yes. Welcome back. All right, it is time to preview Michigan State. Both teams 4-3, 2-2 in the Big Ten, and Andrew will be our moderator.
Yeah, I thought it makes sense to kind of split things up here or give Tony a chance to be the analysis instead of the host here. So, all right, we're going to talk about just kind of the difference between these two teams. And obviously, Michigan and Michigan State couldn't be entering this off different points of their season. Michigan State, I'd say this is clearly the high of the season so far, and this is clearly the low of Michigan's season so far. So with that said, they're still pretty even on paper. The little look ahead here, but Michigan is a 3.5-point favorite as of time of recording this Wednesday afternoon. It's been going down ever since the line opened at 7. But we want to compare and contrast a little bit here of what's a surprisingly even matchup. But Tony, we'll start with you. The defense for Michigan State has been a little bit better than folks may have expected, and Michigan's defense has maybe been a little worse. But who do you see is with the advantage here?
Well, I think so. I think when Michigan has the ball, Michigan State has a clear edge, and when it's the other way, things sort of feel kind of even. Let's look at when Michigan has the ball first, right? I mean, Michigan State near the top 50 in run defense. I think 53rd in run defense. And it's proven it does not matter what you are in pass defense. Michigan has not proven to be able to move the ball against anybody. And so if you're Michigan, you want a team that has reverse splits, right? A team, really, it would have been Washington, a team that stops the pass well statistically, and doesn't do well against the run. That was Illinois, actually, as well. And Michigan did not prove that it could exploit that. So if I'm talking Michigan offense versus Michigan State defense, I think MSU has to have the edge here, which is just amazing given the way Michigan, just ran up and down the field last year. Obviously, both completely new coaching staffs, what have you. But you talk about how this game opened at 7. Preseason, over the summer, this was like a 3-touchdown spread. This was like 20, 21, I think 24 as much as in some places. And so it's just astounding how far these teams have come together. But if Michigan is not able to just, their offense has to be hammer Kalel Mullings. And if they can at least break even in the run, then that'll be a good start.
Yeah, I agree with, Michigan State's defense is clearly better than Michigan's offense. If you watch Michigan State's defense, it's been a complete renovation, I think, from where they were under Scotty Hazelton. They just are much more sound. They don't give up as many explosive plays, and they rally to the football. That's the one thing you saw, especially against Iowa. They were swarming, the running backs and just getting after it with them. And so the effort is there. And that's what Joe Rossi has talked about, is relentless effort. I think that's the other factor. Joe Rossi, coached at Minnesota, he's defended against, he's come up with game plans against Michigan before. I think that's a hidden advantage, I guess, there. Again, then also on the other flip side, Martindale's obviously never faced, Smith's offense. There's some carryover, obviously, with the way that MSU runs their offense. It's a very pro-style offense. Run sets up the pass and such. But, the Joe Rossi institutional knowledge that he brings, I think is a little bit of a factor here too. Again, he, came up with a game plan last year. It didn't work well against Michigan in that game. But again, totally different Michigan offense. I think the game plan that they ran against Iowa, clearly where they were just sold out to stop the run, is what you need to do to basically practice for Michigan. And so I think they've already faced a similar kind of scheme in that sense. And so I think it's going to be pretty effective for them if they employ the same strategy against the Wolverines on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think they gave up just one big run, right, to Caleb Johnson, and I think one 75-yard touchdown. And other than that, I think it was 13 carries for 28 yards. I don't have the exact. Yeah, that's right. It was bottled. And so, Kalel Mullings, right? I don't know if you would take that if you're Michigan, right? You can't have that. You can't have just one explosive run and then Kalel be shut down. He has to be 4, 5, 8, 4, 3, 20, right? Kalel's got to be Kalel. And they have to establish him early.
All right, before we pivot a little bit, Tony, we already put you in the analyst chair. If you were Michigan's offensive coordinator, is there anything you can do? What would you try to do to try to counter here? Because it's easier said than done, right? Everyone likes to get on the play callers, but the last week on the CBS broadcast, they're like, now why are the Wolverines not doing what Penn State did against USC and throwing it to Loveland 15 to 18 times? Because that's literally the only thing in their offense that seems to work besides a Kalel Mullings handoff. Is that something you try? Or, that's pretty much it, right?
That's exactly what I would do. Kalel Mullings would touch the ball at least 25 times. I would try to have Colston Loveland touch the ball 12 times. And then I know he's not great, but I would scheme him open. Like, he's not elite, but Donovan is one of the better players on offense. And I've been hard on him early, but getting him in space, I would have more screen passes. The lack of I don't know the last time I saw Michigan throw a screen to a running back. Why not? Right? Like, I mean, just let him through, dump it off. I mean, because Samaj Morgan's been getting bottled up in the screen game. I don't know where the flood routes are, where the drag routes are. I mean, if they're talking about simplifying, more floods, right? Left to right, roll your quarterback, narrow it down to one half of the field. Don't make him have to go back and forth across the field with these reads. I mean, it needs to be simple. So Loveland, Mullings, roll right, and then screens. I mean, I think that's all I would do. None of this intermediate passing, developing plays. I mean, they're talking about like, oh, it's so close. One thing's off. One thing's always going to be off, right? If you keep trying to have anything that's not just dink and dump. And when you saw what happened, Michigan's one successful drive against Illinois, when Kalel ran it 4 times in a row, Colston had 2 wide open catches for 26 yards. So it starts with Mullins. Even if you're not successful early, run. You got to soften up underneath.
All right, let's talk about a little bit about the MSU offense versus Michigan's defense. Reiner, Childs has been, essentially a roller coaster. Every play at times it feels like interception, touchdown, amazing throw, terrible throw, fumble. It's literally all over the map, but you seem to tighten it up against Iowa. What advantages does Michigan have against Michigan State in this matchup?
Well, Michigan's defense, clearly the 2 tackles, defensive tackles, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. I mean, the interior of Michigan State's offensive line isn't great. Now, they did pretty well running a little bit more wide zone, which is, again, a staple of Jonathan Smith and Brian Lingard's offense. And that's a nuanced blocking scheme. Took time for them. It seems like they hit some rhythm coming out of the bye week, which was encouraging for Michigan State. But still, the advantage that Michigan has is clearly on the defensive line versus that offensive line. That offensive line, the right guard position, they had, Big Dooley Phillips, Gavin Brocious both went down. So they had to move Brandon Baldwin from tackle inside. He's a little bit of a weak link there, very exploitable. Tanner Miller's a good center, but again, going up against those 2 guys is a challenge for any center. And then, the edge players, I like what Stanton Vermeil has done at left tackle for Michigan State, but you'd have to give Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore an advantage there. So, I think, again, if Michigan's going to have successful, they're going to have to really push the pocket with Aiden Childs, get him out, and then also stay in the rush lanes because he can get out and run with the best of them. So, but it really comes down to the defensive line. Now, if they can't do any of that, Aiden Childs will pick you apart. If he's given time, he can throw an accurate ball. He can drive the ball down the field. They love to run play action, deep shots, and Nick Marsh could really do some damage, especially if Will Johnson isn't playing. I think that's a scary player for Michigan right now. And I'd be a little bit concerned about that, especially if, their best cornerback can't go.
When you talk about how explosive Michigan State has shown to be in the passing game, and then the explosives Michigan has given up, the concern for the Wolverine side of the ball is obvious, right? That would be the recipe. And it's not even Nick Marsh.
And it's not even Nick Marsh. Montorie Foster has also really stepped up in that game. And, they've got Jerron Glover too. They've got a pretty good receiver core, and that's indicative of Courtney Hawkins and what he's done as a position coach there. This is a guy who's developed Jaden Reed, Jalen Naylor, Keon Coleman. They always seem to have good receivers, and that's something Michigan rarely has, at least in recent past. So, outside of Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson was okay, but these guys are really guys that are, killing it on Sundays too. And so that's a concern because, especially in this game, as you alluded to, in the Washington game, Michigan's DBs were constantly being beaten by a pretty good receiver core there with the Washington Huskies. And Michigan State has just as good of a receiving core as that, I think.
Yeah, but what Michigan has that Washington does not have the same level of is a pass rush.
Yes.
You mentioned all 4 from Stewart to Grant to Graham to Moore. These guys are ferocious. Any one of them can beat a double team literally on any play. And when you have 4 who are capable of doing that, it's why you can't count this defense out. And even if you, think about this last game. Michigan gave up 21 points, right? 7 of them are two touchdowns, 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. 1 field goal set up by a fumble. 1 touchdown set up by a fumble. The other touchdown only came because of a 35-yard fake run on a punt, on a fake punt, right? Like a 35-yard run on a fake punt. And so, like, special teams is moving the ball. Michigan's defense was really good against Illinois, like seriously good. And so you got, Aiden Childs is very talented. He's still a first-year starting quarterback, and you have to make him see ghosts, right? You got, yes, that's getting pressure with 4, but Wink's always going to send different blitzes and things. And because what Michigan State likes to do, as you talked about, those play action passes and those boots, and then they'll bring someone in, a tight end or another receiver. And Michigan defensive back coach Lamar Morgan was talking about it today. They will go max protect and run like 2-man routes that are long developing routes. They'll have 8 guys blocking for Childs. And then, it's like, okay, there's only 2 receivers. But Nick Marsh is elite. He's proven to be. And you see him.
The key to everything is stopping the run. If Michigan stops the run, then it's probably game over for Michigan State, because that's what Oregon did. Oregon was constantly invading the backfield. That defensive line really got after Michigan State's offensive line, and it really looked a dysfunctional offense because of that. Outside of the early kind of flicker of life that Michigan State had when they ran a 4th and 2 play with Childs to Nick Marsh and got down to the 2, but then Childs fumbled it right there. They really didn't have any offense the rest of the way up until the 4th quarter, when basically Oregon was just kind of going through the motion. So like that to me is like where Michigan wins the game, is if they, or at least beats the offense and suppresses it in this capacity, is if they stop the run and basically limit MSU's ability to run play action and go downfield.
The run is always what determines this game. In the last 54 meetings, the winner of the rushing battle is 48-6. It is just going to come down to that. The turnovers are big. Yeah, you need big plays, can't miss field goals, got to flip the field. 95% of the time, right? 90% of the time plus. If you look at that run score, whichever team's more efficient, has more yards, that's the team that wins. And Michigan State had struggled, I think, right, to run early. And Michigan's been elite against the run all year. They're now number 9, giving up like 90 yards a game. But Michigan State just ran it for 200 some against Iowa, which had been very good against the run. And so the run.
I think to expand on that, we'll get to coaching in 2 seconds here. But to expand on that, I think a lot of it is going to come down to, which is kind of a complication of this or development of this, is whoever takes the lead in this game early is going to have a huge advantage in this one, because Michigan State, when they've played from behind this year, you start seeing Childs press a little bit. They can't run the ball. Childs is trying to squeeze things into small windows. And same with Michigan. We've seen them when they go down so far this year. It's been curtains, basically. So, it's not, you don't want to put too much pressure on them. Well, if whoever scores first wins. But 7 points in this game when the over-under is only like 40. That's a huge advantage, and it's going to totally flip how this game is played. So speaking of how this game is played, coaching advantage, I think based on the first half of the show, we can kind of guess who we think that you guys think has the advantage here. But Reiner, I'm going to guess you're going to say Michigan State has the advantage with coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jonathan Smith, very confident coach. Really, again, love what he did at Oregon State. Again, it was a progressive rebuild there, got better over time. He's been patient with Childs, hasn't panicked with him, stayed the course. You're starting to see the benefits of that. You can see that the growth and the development, even in this last game, some of the decisions he was making. Again, he was going against the Phil Parker defense, zone quarters. They look at you. They're designed to get a lot of takeaways. He only threw 1 interception, which again, much better than what he has done in past games against even lesser defenses. And he probably could have thrown another one. There was a Iowa player who dropped a clear pick, the opportunity. But in essence, he played a lot more composed. And again, when you look at the overall staff, it's very experienced, very competent. I like where they're going as far as the program is concerned and the development. So I'm going to go with Jonathan Smith and Michigan State staff here. I don't think Michigan staff has done a very good job this year at all in any facet, and it's reflective, and they've underperformed in pretty much all three phases.
Michigan does not have a coach on the offensive side of the ball who's ever called plays at the Power 5 level before this year, not counting head coach Sharon Moore, because he is the head coach and he's not doing that this year. So whether it's Bellamy or Campbell or Alford, right, what have you, or Kasua, none of them have done it. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, Lou Esposito, who has done a good job with the defensive line, but I think we could all do a pretty good job coaching that defensive line. So, I mean, I'm not going to lose my mind over anybody who coaches one of the most talented units in America, right? For one singular room, Michigan's defensive line has pound for pound as much talent as any room, I'd say, in the country. Then, I mean, Brian Jean-Marie and linebackers. The linebackers have been okay. Lamar Morgan, defensive backs. Clearly, I mean, they've been getting pretty toasted frequently this year. And then I think Wink Martindale has done a good job. He has made some adjustments. He's been limited. I mean, he hasn't done a great job, but he's done a good job. And I mean, the defense is not the reason that this team is losing games, right? So I think he's fine. But just overall, you can't give Michigan a coaching edge when they continue to turn the ball over, continue to commit penalties, and just make the same mistakes. They look the same after the bye as before the bye. That's the hallmarks of coaching.
I don't know. I disagree on Wink having done a good job. I think he's done okay to below average job. I mean, the drop off is significant, and the fact is that they look undisciplined at times, and they looked overmatched against really competent passing games.
Think about the passing games that this team played in the first 10 weeks, right? I mean, the best quarterback they saw in the regular season was Kyle McCord.
Right. That's true.
I mean, they've seen
Toledo. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, I would say Will Rogers has impressed me more than either of them, right? And of course, Quinn Ewers goes without saying. And I mean, they held Luke Altmaier, I mean, relatively in check, like we said. All but 3 of those points were set up by special teams or offensive blunders. I mean, they can only defend short fields so many times. I'm not saying it's the same level as last year, but they've been put in horrendous situations time and time again. And more often than not, even with off these turnovers, they're forcing field goals, right? Like, they're keeping this team in games as long as possible. And so we might have one of our first disagreements. I actually am going to disagree. I think Wink Martindale's doing a fine job.
Yeah, I don't agree necessarily. Just again, I think the PIs and the penalties have become a problem. You know, again, they're just doing things that they just didn't do. I mean, the leaks have been concerning, and we'll see what happens when they face like really, really elite offenses again in November with Oregon and Ohio State and Indiana to that effect too. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens then, because I think you're going to see this defense really have some issues against those kind of teams.
I think if Wink Martindale had last year's defense, right, I think they'd be pretty similar. I mean, he misses Mikey Sainristil still. He misses Josh Wallace. Jayshawn Barham finally had a good game this last week, but I mean, the linebackers were not the same, right? I mean, it's just, they're playing tougher teams. They have a worse offense to support them, and they have less depth. And Will Johnson's been banged up. Rod Moore is hurt. I mean, we've gone over the injuries in the secondary. I mean, I think there are reasons to explain why the defense has taken a step back. Like, I think we thought the team would take the step back that the defense has, right? Like, not as good, but 9-3, maybe 10-2, maybe 8-4 on the wrong day, 10-2 on the right day, right? That's that level. The offense is 2-10, 1-11, 0-12. You can't overstate how horrific the offense is. And so that's why Wink is the least of my concerns right now.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that, you know, if anything, you probably thought that the Michigan defense would play at like an 11-1 level or a 12-0 level, and the offense would be like 8-4, 7-5, and that's how they get to 10-3. But I think the offense, or 10-2 and 9-3, whatever. But I think that's a fair point. Let's just buzz through special teams here pretty quickly. It's safe to say that both really strong in the kicking game, punting game. maybe I know Tony's not a huge fan of Michigan's punter, but I think, it's a slight edge for Michigan State in the punting game, maybe.
Oh, slight edge. Yeah, that's a big edge. Brian Eckley's a really good punter. Yeah.
We're in lockstep, right? I mean, Brian Eckley's preseason All-American. Tommy Doman, again, it's not about the individual. It's just about what's the results coming off of the leg. Dreadful. Hard to find words for how bad it really is. 3 punts that net fewer than 100 yards is high school level. Truly. Nothing, never pinning anybody inside the 20. They've still given up a few long returns. It's really one of the worst punting seasons I can remember in my time. Like, it's really
You've been banging this drum all year long. I was trying to throw it alone.
And they need it.
But didn't he have one good game? He had one good game. Wasn't it USC?
He had, USC. And that's why they won.
Yeah.
That's how important Tommy Doman is. He pinned USC inside the 24 times. He had 3 50-yarders. He was great. It's not that he can't do it. He was an all Big Ten honorable mention punter last year. He averaged like 45, 46 yards a punt. Now it's like 41, 42 and dropping with more returns.
Dude, from the first game, you've been like, Tommy Doman hasn't been on it this year.
I think I've been right. It's just fact.
Iowa's prodigal son.
I don't know.
Tony Garcia.
Yes, no. I'm a big Tory Taylor fan.
He's
it's slight advantage for Michigan State.
He's got a Ray Guy poster in his bedroom.
So Michigan State. Michigan State both have good kickers. They both have really good kickers.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. In a game that may come down to punting, you got to give the edge to Michigan State. So, okay. With that said, Michigan State, a 3.5 point underdog. We were talking pre-show for those who know about Vegas gambling lines. Typically, 2.5 points is the advantage for home. So if this was on a neutral site, Michigan would be about a 1 point favorite, or maybe even push, even, or Michigan State would be favored at home. So by all intents and purposes, Vegas thinks this game is essentially a toss-up. Tony, what is your pick?
I just can't believe that this is not just an auto Michigan pick, which is what, frankly, I thought the case would be going into this season. But if you listen to what we've just said, and I think we are all trying to look at this, just X's and O's, just figure it out. How do these teams line up? There are paths for Michigan to get to victory, but they got to turn Michigan State over. They have to win the turnover. They have to protect it. They have to turn Michigan State over, and they have to win the run game. And they haven't done those things consistently this year. Now Michigan State is not doing things consistently either. But if you look at the trajectory of these teams headed into this moment, one's headed up, one's headed down. And the one headed down, how can you, as a human, manufacture genuine enthusiasm? Maybe I think the rivalry game is a perfect time for Michigan, because you need something to rally around. But how can you rally when you have 3 losses and guys who've been on campus almost since COVID days have lost that many times combined, right? It's just, there's human nature involved. There's matchups involved. Michigan State's passing game looks like it can pick this Michigan passing D apart. Michigan hasn't moved the ball on offense. They come off a game where they just score 7 points. They're not flipping the field. The coaches haven't made switches, right? And so I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm picking Michigan State to win.
Yeah, I agree. I'm picking Michigan State to win as well. I saw every minute of the Michigan State-Iowa game. I was there. They scored on 8 of 11 drives, looked really efficient. The run game was, working in conjunction with the passing game. The defense was incredibly solid. I think Iowa and Michigan are kind of similar in a lot of respects. Based on the fact that they don't have, a great passing game, either team. And they also tried to run the ball a ton and rely on their defense to basically carry the load. And I just think that Aiden Childs is also a huge difference maker in this game. Again, Michigan would love to have a quarterback like that right now. They don't have that. And I think Michigan State has a huge advantage in the passing game at the quarterback position. And I think that's one reason why I picked Illinois to win last week. There's a reason why I'm going to pick Michigan State to win this week. Yeah, I'm also shocked that it's come to this. It's 49-0 last year. These programs looked so far apart. The fact that they're this close together at this point, with one, the team that lost last year trending up and the team that won by a huge margin trending down, is quite incredible.
I was eating popcorn in the fourth quarter last year, literally in the press box. I mean, there was nothing to do. It was 49-0. It was all backups, and you were just waiting for time to run off the clock.
49-0. It could have been 80-0. I mean, honestly, it could have easily been in the high 70s. I mean, I hate to be the college game day when all the analysts on the screen have the same pick in the row, but there's just not enough reasons to pick Michigan over Michigan State right now. Michigan State has shown an ability to drive the ball, sustain drives in a way that Michigan has not this year, including last week in some spots where it got a little tense, where it's like, oh, this could be where Iowa snatches this game. Michigan State would drive down the field and respond. And outside of the USC game, where really it was a big play by Mullins that kind of launched that thing open, the Wolverines just haven't done that this year. So Michigan's D-line has the chance to completely obliterate this game against an inexperienced and sometimes downright bad offensive line for Michigan State, especially if even, Michigan State likes to run those long stretch plays like Reiner said. If those plays don't work, if the guards and centers are getting pushed back 4 yards, that's where the weakness is for Michigan State. But with everything we said, Michigan, don't you trust Michigan State staff to potentially pivot more if that is kind of happening? So I just, with the points, you got to take Michigan State as it currently stands. So, Tony, final thoughts? Looks like you holding something in there?
Yeah, no, it just feels that way. I mean, the thing I was holding in was Reiner's point. I mean, Michigan's been outscored 5 games in a row. They had a bye week in the second half, right? And if you can't make adjustments, and this thing is anywhere close, right? We talk about it. They're 4-3. They were up 24-3 against Minnesota and 14-0 against USC. Anything short of perfect starts on those days, we're looking at a team that's 3-4 right now. 2-5 is actually like it could have been. It really could have been. And then all 3 losses, it's hard to see which one of those could have been the win, right? Like maybe Washington, maybe Illinois, but not really. Not really. So it's just shocking.
Yep. Okay. Some bereavement for Michigan fans. Let's take a bigger look at the college football landscape as a whole. So fun games this week. None that necessarily like, Ohio State, Oregon, or Alabama versus Georgia, but top to bottom, just some fun games. So we'll start with probably the biggest game of the weekend, LSU at Texas A&M. Both teams undefeated in SEC play here now. They kind of got the thing rolling here, both of them now. So Texas A&M 2.5-point favorite. We'll go to our SEC expert, Reiner Saban, first for this one.
I'm going with Texas A&M here. As much as, again, LSU has been on a bit of a heater themselves. I mean, A&M's been playing pretty competent football, since the beginning of the season, notwithstanding the loss to Notre Dame early on. But, again, Texas A&M looks like one of the, top teams. Mike Elko has done a really good job with them. Again, much more competent play on both sides of the ball. I'm going with A&M here.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I mean, this is my, like, for the SEC, this is what I would refer to in the Big Ten as this is like the Nebraska, Illinois, just whichever team wins this game is still overrated. I would want nothing to do with either of these teams long term, just because they're just toxic. They always are. Either Brian Kelly is or everything around College Station is. But I was wrong picking against A&M once in a big game this year. They lost to Notre Dame, and then I picked against them. I don't remember who went, and I was like, yeah, A&M always loses big games at home. They just steamrolled someone under
Missouri.
Elko, like 41-10. Maybe it was the Duke, Missouri. Okay, and so yeah, and I mean it's less than a field goal at home. I mean, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be tight. But Brian Kelly loves to lose big games and then blame his players. So I can just see his red face blaming Nussmeier right now for another pick. You just can't have it. So
yeah, I mean, Brian Kelly, these early season losses have been what's kind of been his tenure at LSU so far. They've been last year. They started slow again and then slowly built it up. And by the end of the year, Jaden Daniels is playing lights out and they got the thing rolling. So they've been progressively building it up. A real nice win at Ole Miss. It won 29-26, but I felt like they kind of earned that win. It wasn't just like a fluky road win. So I'm going to roll with LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, is the best quarterback in this game. And I'm going to go with the best quarterback and a hot LSU team to stay undefeated in the SEC. Let's do our third game now here. So Washington at Indiana. The Hoosiers 6.5-point points favorites despite not having their quarterback, Rourke, against the Washington team who already beat the Wolverines. That's probably their best win of the season. They got beat by Iowa, who lost to Michigan State. The Big Ten is starting to turn into the NFL where, you can't even keep track of who beat who. The parity is so top to bottom here. But Ryder, I think Indiana gets it done without Rourke.
No, I don't think so. And I think that he's a, big loss. I mean, for them, for temporarily, at least at this point. And so, plus, Indiana's coming off that huge win over Nebraska. And so I don't know if they can keep that level of play or, again, there's a lot of hype that's building around this program and Kurt Signetti and everything else. And it seems like just the opportunity for Washington to kind of come in and maybe give them a little bit of a scare here. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Fish and the guys to, make it so that Indiana doesn't cover.
Yeah, I pretty much in lockstep there. Really, my pick for this game would be the under, right? No Rourke for Indiana, and then Washington. No team is better at driving the field and finding a way to not score points. I mean, Grady Gross, he was a fantastic kicker 2 years ago. I mean, he looks like he would fit in right on Michigan's offense. I mean, the dude just can't do anything he's asked to do. Like, he just misses every kick. And so, but Indiana, no quarterback, right? I'm not gonna, I don't know who would back him. I don't know what their situation is behind him, but you have game day there, you beat Nebraska, you lay a 50 burger on them, then you lose your guy, you got to come back and win by a touch. That's a lot to ask. And I know that Indiana scored 41 points in 5 straight games or whatever, and Washington struggles to put the ball in the end zone. I almost talked myself out of this, man. I'll still go Washington just because I don't know about that quarterback. Man, I almost just talked myself out of it.
A real time talking out.
I mean, David Jackson isn't that bad. I mean, that's the thing that makes me a little bit worried about it too. At the same time, I think that, Steve Belichick could get them, going well. I mean, the concern is that Washington gave up 40 to Iowa. I mean, like, what was going on there?
I don't know what to make of this Washington team. I'm picking them because of all the reasons you guys laid out. Huge spot for Indiana after coming off another, the magic is going to run out on this Indiana team at some point, suppose. It has to, right? And the schedule thus far has been, comically bad. FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska. I mean, they've played basically 3 of the easiest Big Ten teams and played 4 of the easiest Big Ten teams and 3 of the easiest non-conference teams you can imagine. So Washington is probably the best team they've played. And I'm gonna take the Huskies, not because of anything really that I believe in the Huskies, but because I think it's going to come crashing down for Indiana at some point. Mr. Garcia, you're raising your hand in the back.
I am. I apologize. Full retraction. I'm picking the Hoosiers.
Okay.
I did talk myself into it.
Wow.
And here, do you want to know the final tipping point? It's a noon kick. You're having Washington go to Bloomington and kick at what would normally be 9 a.m. West Coast. It is not easy. It is not easy to do this. And you know what? I didn't like it. I was just close enough. If it was a 3:30 or night game, which is typically a more hostile environment. It's hard. We've seen what this travel did. Put me on the Hoosiers. 8-0.
Oh, if they lose,
I can't switch picks, even though I'm kind of going. Yeah.
Did you feel that? Did that get you a little fired up?
The noon kick does make me very leery of Washington at this point. Yeah. No, I can't switch picks though. That doesn't seem kosher.
Have some pride.
That doesn't seem kosher. Yeah. I mean,
but also remember, the real play is the under. The under.
If we were a radio show, I would cut up full retraction from Tony and just use it any time that someone changed their mind. So, okay. Last but not least, after Tony's, backtracking, who knows if that actually, he's going to try to claim either way though, runners. If Washington wins, he's like, I had it at first. And if Indiana wins, he'll be like, told you guys. So we can't win now. So, okay. Last game of the day here. Notre Dame, a 13-point favorite against Navy, who, man, they're just these armed forces academies this year are no joke. This game's being played at in New Jersey there at the Giants and Jets Stadium. So, Tony, 13-point favorite for Notre Dame. Who do you think gets done?
I'm not walking this one back. This will be a one and done pick. I mean, it is tough to play military academies any year, but when they're tough, I mean, it just takes it out of you. And so to think the concern with Navy is, I mean, obviously they're the definition of one-dimensional, and should they fall behind, there is no getting back in it. But man, if you can, when they can just play it ugly, keep it close, run the triple option, flip the field, accept the points when they can, beating them by multiple scores is tough. And to do it closer to their place, I'll take the midshipman. Shout out my grandpa who was in the Naval Academy. Give me the points.
Yeah, I'm going with Navy as well because, I mean, again, they show that they can score the football too. And I agree that 13 just seems like a way too much for a Notre Dame team that just does not feel like an elite team anyway. And I think this is probably, one of the more competitive games as far as it relates to Notre Dame and Navy, in the sense that actually I think Navy can, not only play with them, but maybe has an outside shot at beating them. So like, This is not your typical Navy team. They're much better. I mean, they put up 51 on Charlotte, scored, I think 41 on Memphis, which is a pretty decent Group of 5 team. Yeah, they're really solid. They're ranked. I mean, this is not any kind of gimme for Notre Dame at all.
I'm going to say some words that, as just a casual college football fan, really hurts to say. I think Notre Dame might be a little underrated. Believe it or not, they beat Texas A&M at Texas A&M, who continues to look like a good team. They had their loss earlier in the season. It's like, okay, maybe that one wasn't so good. They lost to Northern Illinois, which is what still holds us all up. And because, of course, it's Notre Dame, they've been impressive. Other than that, they beat a good Louisville team. They crushed Stanford, crushed Georgia Tech. And I think, just reverse psychology myself here, I if I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, oh my God, I get to bet on Navy playing Notre Dame, 13 points. That seems way too high. I think that it's kind of like one of those weird lines. And I think Notre Dame takes care of business and if they get up early, I think it could end up being a blowout. So I'm going to take the Fighting Irish in this one to close things down for our picks for this week.
All right. That'll do it. And just one more little recap on where we all stand on the picks, because I know Andy always likes to gloss over it. I am currently 17-11. Reiner, after a 4-0 week last week, shout out Reiner, is 16-12, just one game back. And Andrew, he keeps going 500. It's hard to pick up a little ground, 13-15. So that's really why you were just picking the opposite of us this week. You're trying to make up some ground.
You have to take some chances, right? I mean, you only get 4 chances. You got to take some risks there. I'm surprised, as our producer, I'm surprised you don't just add like 7 games to the slate. He's like, all right, everybody, 11 picks this week. I promise you, if it's close at the end, we will. We'll be doing 10 days. All right. I know. November, that's where champions are made. But this is the last week of October. Obviously a big one between Michigan and Michigan State. A loss, I know we've harped on it enough, but Michigan would go winless in the month of October. And I haven't done the research to see the last time that happened, but not good. We'll see what happens one way or the other, and we will be in full force. The Freep will in Ann Arbor. Chris Solari will be on hand, our Michigan State writer. You're set, myself, Reiner, a couple other columnists. I think Sean Windsor will be on hand, maybe Jeff Seidel as well. I don't know if Carlos or Mitch are coming, but it'll be all hands on deck for sure. So thanks to everyone for listening to this extended episode. Hail yes. And thanks to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols. And thank you to our audio engineer, Robin Chan. And, I'm not gonna, we do have some news in the sports department front, but we will thank and maybe address that on our next episode. So for Reiner, for Andrew, I'm Tony. Appreciate it. Take care. This is Hail Yes.